Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, we are from group 5. With the member, the first one is Arinda Dutami Yasmin, Febiana Sahroni Ilyas, Nada Alfi Syahrin, Nabila Aisyah Fahrani, and Rahmatul Kaira. So in this occasion, we would like to explain our presentation about how to directing the story, and for the first chapter until 3 chapter will be explained by Arinda. To Arinda, time is yours.
Okay, thanks to moderator. Chapter 1, the goal. Why do we watch? Why do we watch movies? The most interesting answer to this question that I always get without fail is we watch to be entertained. To this I always answer, yes, that's true. Okay, now we know that we watch movies to be entertained. 1001 Nights of Entertainment. When you watch a movie, you have to watch it twice before you can really analyze it. This is because if the filmmakers have done their job correctly, you get lost in the story just as the Sultan did. You can't be paying attention to how it's constructed because you are involved in following the story. Well, we'll soon see what an active process following the story actually is. You need to watch a movie a second time when you already know what's going to happen so you can begin to analyze how it is put together. Ironically, it's easier to learn about visual storytelling from bad movies than great classics. With a classic film, the story appears seamless. With this in mind, I recommend that you read Scheherazadeh's stories more than once in order to clearly see the principles and techniques at work in the visual storytelling. What's at stake is nothing less than life and death. The most important thing about making a movie is that it must be about something big, important, and significant. Once you know what your story is, you have to show your audience what's at stake. Don't tell your audience. You have to show them what's at stake if the mission fails. You have to promise your audience that it will be worth it for them to follow the journey and the emotions of the characters. In order to make the journey worthwhile, it must be difficult for the characters. No, make it impossible for them. Create obstacles in the way of characters' goal. This is how the characters grow and how stories become interesting. Dramatization through questions. Drama involves exaggeration. It takes ordinary events and brings out qualities to show how significant they are. Achieving any goal often involves a trial and error process of learning what works and what does not. The unique aspect that makes this story worthy is that it all has to be interconnected as a sequence of cause and effect actions. The storyboards presented in this book are just as they would be in the actual making of a movie. Artists first work out ideas in a rough form, and then, once the story is working, the drawings are polished. You'll see drawings in all stages of finish throughout this book. 1001 Nights Entertainment Revisited. The description under the panels what the storyboard artist might say when he or she pitches the storyboard sequence. Normally, only the dialogue is written under the drawings on separate slips of papers. This allows the dialogue to be easily repositioned. Critic. Is it too late to turn back? We know Scheherazade is going against the tide in her determination to stop the Sultan from having any more disappearances. This is her one. If she fails, she will disappear. This is what's at stake. Scheherazade faces overwhelming obstacles symbolized by the magnificent scale of the palace of the Sultan King. In this way, she is already the underdog. The entertainment explained. The audience is your customer. Give them what they want. First, we let them into what to expect. But what would happen if you just gave them what they expected? They would get bored because it would be predictable. You have to give them what they want, but not in the way they expected it. There have to be surprises along the way. Let's say you show a bunch of people crying. That won't necessarily make the audience feel sad. In fact, it might provoke laughter. In my story class, we watched a movie about an ogre who was ready to go. She was very sad and began to cry. The student had set up the scene well, and the audience was touched. Opportunity from criticism. What is the audience doing? This became my point of view to study film. What is the audience doing? Became my second most important question. Why do we watch and what is the audience doing? Are the two questions that shape this book. Reverse engineering approach. What's going on in the mind, body, heart, and soul of the audience every 1/24 of a second? We are going to learn about how the mind works, about how we see, and how the mind processes information and how it creates emotions. Once we know what the mind is doing watching movies, we will work backward to know how to utilize that information as a way to structure our movie for maximum impact because we will know what to aim for. This is known as a reverse engineering approach, working backward by carefully examining the relationship of all the parts. Opportunity for criticism. I was working on Pocahontas at the time. The end was very flat like the ending of a summer camp movie. See you next summer. Pocahontas was to be Disney's first ending, not to be happy ever after. How could I still give the audience an emotionally satisfying experience? His criticism had given me the seeds of opportunity. What is the audience doing? This became my point of view to study film. What is the audience doing became my second most important question. Why do we watch and what is the audience doing are the two questions that shape this book. Reverse engineering approach. What's going on in the mind, body, heart, and soul of the audience every 1/24 a second? We are going to learn about how the mind works, about how we see, and how the mind processes information and how it creates emotion. Once we know what the mind is doing watching movies, we will work backward to know how to utilize the information as a way to structure our movies for maximum impact because we will know what to aim for. This is known as a reverse engineering approach, working backward by carefully examining the relationship of all the parts. Why do we watch and more? What we need to know is not only why we watch, but also what the audience is doing when they watch. What's going on their minds? The answers to these questions we will serve to guide us. Let's imagine a man watching a movie, but a man and a dog. We are going to get inside his head and see what happens when he watches the movie. Let's go to the movies, but we are not going to watch the screen. We are going to watch the audience. Now, all of these processes don't happen one after another. Many of them overlap and affect each other. We're not even aware of most of it going on. It happens outside of our awareness. We are lost in the events of the story and wondering what's going to happen next. Promise to the reader, intuition illuminated. There is no substitute for that experience. But there are tactics and techniques you can use to help your change of making your audience feel good. Know that you know the goal, you're off to a great start. Once you have mastered these skills, you can forget them because you will have the experience to intuitively make the movies that are emotionally powerful. Then you can use these techniques as analytic tools to polish what your heart brings forth. The secret of storytelling is story delaying. Secrets that use exciting cliffhangers to prolong her life from one night to the next. There are a whole repertoire of story delaying techniques based on the control of the flow of information of who gets to know what, when, and how. Remember the class comment that we watch movies to escape boredom and everyone laughed? That was a great clue. We want to avoid boredom. We want excitement in our lives. We watch movies to feel alive, and yes, that feels good. Points to remember. A, we watch movie to feel good, need in your audience. B, make sure that your story is about something that matters. Aim, CM that at providing an emotionally satisfying experience for your audience, but work. D, at the structural level. E, the secret of storytelling is storytelling. Learn the different tactics to teach your F's audience by making them wait. G, the next time you're at a movie, pay attention to what experiences you are going. H, do as you watch. Notice what triggers your emotions. Chapter 2, Common Beginner Problems. Where do you begin? We need images that can clearly tell a story. It is easy to learn how to fix these types of problems. However, telling the story using pictures is the other part of the job. Most of us, however, have not had the same amount of experience or need to tell visual stories in everyday life. Verbal communication is such more efficient and quicker. Daily life doesn't teach this skill. Drawing itself is usually seen as a skill you're either born with or not. It's often easier to learn what not to do by watching bad movies because the flaws are visible. The catch-22 of the character-driven intuitive approach. Characters have to take actions to get what they desire. It's these actions that lead characters into trouble based on their personalities. Most characters are presented as not knowing how to deal with their desires. That's why we can relate to them. They have to use their own skills and learn new ones to solve their problems. This is very powerful. Plot and characters are interconnected, but the characters have to be active. In a sense, they are the ones driving the story. So character-driven stories are about characters taking action to get what they want. The problem with learning about a character-driven approach to storytelling is the same problem with intuition. How can you use your intuition if you don't have any experience to base it on? You have to learn how to visualize a story into a series of pictures. What can possibly go wrong? There are several problems that can arise when we speak. We can talk and trying to say too much until we running out of breath, yet we keep talking, possibly trying to make sure there's no silence. We can leave a thought unfinished. What was I saying? We can confuse the sentence with unnecessary things about red herrings and other exotic fish. Lack of punctuation was the drawback of one another. One of my storyboard artists. Incorrect grammar is comparable to poor sequencing of visual images. This breaks the flow of time or cause and effect relationships. Another related problem is not using connectives to connect different ideas. When we speak, we use words like and so to make sentences flow. We'll learn more about creating flow when we talk about editing. The worst speaking problem of all is a lack of something important to say. This occurs visually when there's nothing happening in the frame or worse yet at the story level. Catch-22 revisited. We learned the value of that old proverb, necessity is the mother of invention. We learned to improvise. Special effects was another area when we needed to be inventive. Digital effects didn't exist back then. You either had to shoot the effects live or use an optical printer. But we can directly affect their emotions. We have to do it by structuring the film. So what we do we direct? We direct their attention while telling the story. How does one direct someone's attention? For now, let's just say we point things out for them. Later, we are going to into great detail about how to direct attention, but for now, we need to know what to avoid. A, enemies for good design. B, a fine mess. C, clear and dramatic pipes, confusion and boredom. The speaking metaphor. The discovery of speaking problems led me to create a technique that I called the speaking metaphor of storytelling. It's simply this. We tell a story with pictures just as if we were speaking it with words. Show and tell. Draw attention to one idea at a time, just like when speaking, and you need to make sure your drawings say what you think they're saying. Every shot is a close-up. Close-ups are the only shots that show just what you want to say. They say, look at this, I'm pointing the camera at this for a reason. We are using the speaking metaphor to to tell the story with pictures, one idea at a time. In writing, we use grammar and composition to structure what we want to say. With film, we use sequencing and visual composition. We want to show exactly what we want to say in the context of a series of shots. What is a story? It's in its simple form. A story is telling of a series of events about a character who wants something, but the character doesn't know how to go about getting what he or she wants. So he or she has to face obstacles and the complication of the ensue. The story builds to a crisis until the character gets not what he or she wants, but what he or she needs. This is the basic structure that most stories follow. There can be many models that can be used to create exciting movies. A story could be like a rubber band. Pick it up, stretch it, aim it at the goal, stretch it some more, relax, stretch it further, and release all the energy until it hits the target and comes to rest. What is the character? Character is a person represented on screen. A good character is one who appears believable, strongly wants something, and goes after it by taking action in his or her own unique way. To create interesting characters, we need to visually show their goals and limitations. We all have various kinds of limitations that, at least temporarily, constrain our behavior. We need to show characters' decisions as to which goal they will go after, the action they take, how they deal with others during the process, and how they deal with the obstacles that get in the way of their goals. We need to show the moment they discover that what they are doing wrong or inspirational moments that keep them on their quest. We need to show how they change and the events and new information that change them. Critic. Introducing Sekeratzat. Notice also how we're representing the material using the speaking metaphor. We are showing the audience of a series of close-ups, one at a time, of what we want them to see so that they can follow along in our story. Points to remember. A. Make sure your story is character driven by their desires. B. Be aware of potential speaking problems that may bum your audience about being lost in the story. Remember the speaking metaphor. Clearly show one thing at a time. D. Fight boredom by weaving interesting narrative questions that create dramatic characters in escalating conflict. C. Fight confusion by focusing the audience attention to one thing at a time as you tell the story. G. Treat every shot as a close-up of what you wish to show the audience. H. Make sure your images clearly show the story ideas that you intend to convey. I. Aim at the heart by working at a structural level. Chapter 3. The Beginning Basics. History and function of storyboards. The Disney method of storyboarding evolved based on the needs of filmmakers. There are hundreds or thousands of drawings created in the making of a feature-length film. Tracking them makes for an organizational nightmare, particularly when each scene can involve change-you-funded changes. Disney artists originally would lay individual panels out on the floor and point to the drawings as the composer played the music. Eventually, they got the idea to pin them up on the wall on large sheets of cork. This provided a great way to view them and allow an easy way to incorporate changes. It also created an occupational hazard. Various types of storyboards. Each medium has evolved its own version of what is included in storyboards based on the artistic and financial needs. In animation, every aspect of each scene has to be designed and created. Storyboards for animation have to provide a clear depiction of their acting for the film. In live action, the storyboards do not need to depict the characters' emotions because the actors themselves provide the emotions. In live action, we want to give the actors freedom to explore in their performances. The actors are not going to follow a storyboard. It is a visual guide for the director. Production process. Visual development is the creation of the look of the world of your movie. In designing characters, physical appearances tell a lot about what people are like. The goal is to create a fresh version of story stereotypes. Stereotypes allow the viewer to quickly understand the type of character that we are dealing with. That is why they are useful. Problems arise in real life when we try and judge real people as if they are stereotypes. Problems arise in movies with stereotypes because they are predictable and thus boring. The visual look of a film is under the domain of the art director and production designer. However, the storyboard artist can be often be the first one to enter and explore the world. The beat board. Before the actual storyboarding begins, the artists create a beat board. These are a series of single drawings that each represents a scene of the movie. The drawings tell a more complex story in a single picture, much like a children's book illustration. The beat board serves as a guide for the director to pitch the story to executives, financial investors, and the crew. Storyboarding overview. Storyboards are used to plan many aspects of movies. At this early stage, strict continuity is not crucial. The story is. A refinement pass can be used to map screen geography and plan cinematography, camera angles, and blocking. Storyboards help plan complex action sequences with moving cameras. Explore and experiment because it is cheaper to try out ideas on paper before animation or live action shooting begins. Storyboards are always a work in progress. Story reels. A story reel is a version of the completed storyboards combined with voices and temporary music. The refinement process. The refinement process is where ideas in the reels need to be clarified for the audience to understand. The story reels allows us to see all the pieces in context. Ideas may be reordered to find the best way to present a gag or build suspense. Parts that slow the story down should be edited out. All writing is rewriting and this applies to storyboarding. Pitching. This pitching is the process of showing someone your storyboards, whereby you perform the dialogue and briefly describe the action as you sequentially point to the drawings. It should be performed in real time. That is, the pitch should take as long as the sequence will take. When completed, the director and producer should have a very good sense of how the sequence will appear to the audience. How to tell a story with pictures. Tell the story in a sequence of just a pose images. The most important thing to remember when storyboarding is to make sure your sequence of images is telling the same story that you think you are telling. It is all too easy to assume that they are doing so, but you need to pitch the story to people and then see if they got the same story and the message you intended. So far, secret storytelling plot is working. Not having a voice has not stopped what she has to say. Breaking down the script. What are the story bits? Script page. Movie usually start with a written story called a script. The character dialogue and all of the action is described as if it is happening right now. The script only describes what we will see and hear. A story bit is an idea of little action. It is the smallest unit that tells them the film story. It is flowed of these ideas that produce the questions and answer them. When a new idea is introduced, we have a new story bit. It separates action toward the goal is a new bit. The story bits also create a sense of conclusion for sequences of actions. They allow us to follow the steps of the story by breaking the story down into chunks and actions. How to storyboard a scene. Storyboarding is not just a translation of the script into a series of visual images. It is more like a new rewrite of the story now using the flow of images to show instead of words and that tell. Movies are images, words, sounds, and music to show or tell their stories. A picture is worth 1001 words. Choose which one your image stays. Dialogue should be like icing on the cake. It is not necessary, but it makes the whole cake taste better. Storyboarding is nothing less than the first pass at directing a film. Staging the action. Originally taken from the theater, staging refers to the physical act of placing the characters in different places on the stage to best present the story events. In film, this physical arrangement of the actors in relation to the camera is also known as blocking. Over time, staging has come to mean the overall method of presenting a performance. Staging is also used in film to set up each shot's composition or what the viewer will see on screen. Staging should be a process of exploration by trying out different arrangements to find the best possible presentation. Best in this case means the clearest and most dramatic. Critique Skerarazat's storytelling. What's Skerarazat's story about? It's about the characters. Gu is looking for love in all the wrong places. Gu doesn't really care about others and this gets him in troubles. Sounds like someone we know? Yes, she has modeled her character after the Sultan himself. The Sultan is going along for the ride watching a character who is very much like himself. He's also watching the transformation of that character. If Sekara Razet can succeed, the Sultan himself will transform as well. Points to remember. A. Draw bold. Make your images easy to see as a billboard. B. Number your drawings. C. Pitch clearly and passionately. D. Storyboards are always a work in process. Start out rough and don't be afraid to E. Throw away drawings. Keep it at it until you find the image that best tells the story. F. Avoid relying on talking head shots. Tell the story visually. Invent visual devices. G. Watch the Wallace and Gromit short, a close shave and the wrong trousers as H. An example of a great visual storytelling. I. Watch all silent movies to see how they tell story without words. So that's all for me. Thank you and back to moderator.
Okay, thank you for all your explanation. The next slide will be explained by Fabiana. To Fabiana, time is yours.
Thank you, moderator. I will continue read about chapter 4, how to draw for storyboarding, motion, and emotion. Drawing a great way to begin the visualization of a film. Drawing achievement depends upon individual ability and traits, including the desire to draw, visual memory, observational and motor skill, imagination, even influence and aesthetic preferences. And finally, how one draws is affected by the opportunity to learn and apply drawing skills, the amount of encouragement to draw, and the type of drawing instruction of one disciples. Next, please. First, about from stage figures to balance people. Storyboarding is really about visualizing the image of the film and the sequencing of this image. Many successful directors have used stick figures to board sequences. Anyone can draw stick figures. People who say they can draw stick figures. We are going to show you how to get giant stick figures. The more you are able to draw an image in your head to visual scenes, the better the drawing will communicate with the efficient to your crew, producer, and investors. The language of the body speaks. It begins the express emotion. The first example, blind people, simple skeleton, line of action. And what about drawing hands? For storyboarding, we are not trying to make beautiful drawings, but rather visual the story into a series of pictures. This picture are of a series of action. So we simply draw the action, we draw simple hands that put things, walk onto things, call things, scoop things, and bang things. Simple draw the line of action for the activity that you want, and then at the times are necessary, you want it much. It helps to think of a method. Next, please. 3 while stand pale gesture drawing class what the draw the story while quotes gravity and prose use the floor as a stage and body acting performance. For caricature is a little of us portraits with big noses. Boring involves extreme the style of drawing, caricature drawing, and capturing the essence with the most visible express its subject with the few slides possible, and caricature vary in degree of distortion based on the style that you are using. Next, please. And design interesting character. Works to create clear the house with the interesting shapes. Best character of a simple shapes like circle, triangles of or rectangles. For shapes also work by spears and bananas. Try contrasting a different shape and size. It's important to create unfired style to all of your characters so they feel like they belong in the same world. First proportion make the difference, drawing animal of deep stories and story drive of emotion. 6. Drawing the four main groups, change of experiential thinking, a gallery of emotion, miscellaneous drawing tips. And which is symmetry in your drawing, it's boring. It can make your drawings look cut out and use angles to avoid symmetry and read poses. And dynamic symmetry is much more interesting. Next, please. 7. Drawing for clarity and the use of clear silhouettes and first about basic lighting, the drama of light, vertical lighting, more work the lexicon of Komiana and technical aspects of storyboard. So I just level cut in the upper left of the incoming scenes and secret shots. The surface are indicated with an X between frames, spread and repeated and or half across the shot. Next. And points to remember, carry a sketchbook and sketch some more, draw a story, use a gesture to help tell the story, then draw the essential and try scenes a dozen different ways to compose them, envelope outside one thing at a time, and everything must relate to that one thing. Draw the pose, not the parts. Don't blow it with too many details. Draw verbs or action, not nouns or names of things. And then even up your pose, the dialogue nouns. And watch the Disney animated classic, for example, of Great Drawings, and watch Hayao Miyazaki films such as Kiki Delivery Service or Totoro for great visual storytelling and drawing. Study comics books for great drawing and visual storytelling. Next, and about chapter 5, structural approach tactics to reach the goal. First of all, once upon a time, the structural approach to the writing is based on what the audience is doing as they watch a movie. We want to give them an emotionally satisfying experience. We are other by working at the structure. What follows is the beginning of a card that will describe the tools that you will be able to use to work at the structural level. When you use correctly, these tools will help you to structure involve any your viewers or lost in the story. The host awards divides what the audience pay attention to into what we notice and what we don't. We usually don't pay attention to what is below this line unless something catch our attention by being out of place. Structure is how the story is told through narrative version, the lines, and also using the speaking metaphor to show one idea that express. First about critic developing character relationship, the character owns Shehrazad's face is out of place. Instead of being on the drawing, it takes them out of the dumb love story temporarily, but what it serves is to reveal character relationship in the Scheherazade story is a little less uptight. It shows she is letting her go down and that the Sultan is warming up to her. We are involved with the characters and what they are going through. We are lost in the story, not paying attention to the cutting, staging, composition, and all of the choice of the storyteller. 2 points to remember. First, I'm at the her by working at the structural level to create narrative device that keep the audience guessing, and to keep the structure invisible. Don't call attention to it or you will create a hole in your story. Space. And that's about chapter 6. What do directors direct? Next, please. It's about how to get attention as a filmmaker. This is something to keep in the back on your mind. Motion, contrast, brightness, pointing at, and loudness all attract attention. Another way of directing attention can be done by trying another experiment. And the map is not the terrier. The fact that the mob is not the theory sounds pretty absurd, but what is not so is that fact that the really never deal directly with the territory of our experience of the world is so our maps of it. Our must represent the world using image, sounds, words, and symbol, in other words, and sensory information. Please. 3. Selective attention. A type record doesn't either differentiate what it records. The record doesn't know what is important. Is why we need to be able to see action carefully, so we are presenting to our audience. We need to turn our sensitivity to light and sound. For keeping attention, showing the audience new and exciting things will keep your audience attention. This will work for a while, but if you have ever been in a great art museum, you have probably experienced that after a while you reach burnout. Next, please. Keeping structure in visible tricks of attention. The film story appears to tell itself without anyone having to tell it. There are certain tricks involved to achieve this. A director directs the audience attention to the action of the presentation of the image and sounds of the film. And Milton Erickson meets Bunny Milton Erickson was well fascinated by what makes people think. There is a great story from Milton's childhood that illustrates his insatiable curiosity. One snowy morning, he got up early, and while walking to school, the young Milton did an experiment. Eric's techniques, the first things he does. Eric's techniques, the first thing he does is to utilize what the person offers. Bugs acted that Elmer is something like this that doesn't deter him, and in fact use it to accomplish his second objective. Bugs the potential Elmer consequence state. In other words, the fact that the prey walks up to the hunter to ask what he is doing is not the normal state of a phrase. It is a very confusing, so Bugs confuse Elmer. In order to not be confused, you have to go internal and make sense of the situation. Now he is framed and ready to go into range. The Bugs asks a serious question, creating Yes, set. Next, please. The power of suggestion sound can be very suggestive. The use of sound is what brings lead to film. The suggestive power of each is watch. How the brains organize information. Gestalt is organization who has more than just the sum of the parts. For example, the mind of stick as or close together, and it fits our things to look and everything else fades into the background. When we read, we see each or clusters of the mind appears in the back and visually in parts of a video are cut out. There will be attention in us that wants to cross the chat we tend to see complete figures. Grouping into a little more information in the form of a gray background makes the figure emerge clearly. Closure is relatively simple. We tend to perceive close figures. The gray in the previous image provides the closure, but the yellow image of suppose merely implied, and closure works on first level. It works on our perceptual level, but it also works on our story level. Figure and ground, the second key concept of Gestalt perception is that a figure or ground attention. This relates to attention theory and our speaking metaphor. When figures becomes prominent and at a time, we perceive figure and the ground resides from our attention. Optical illusion can present reversible figure whereby the figure becomes ground and vice versa. It is like two images is one. We only see one at a time. Next, please. For example, good continuity state that we tend to assume there were not grouping by proximity. Our perceptual processing tends to organize things that are close together or related easily as a and grouping by similarity without knowledge some way that are seen to be together and group by common region terms enclosed in a common area are seen to belong together, and being by connections when terms connected is some way of the same as belong together, and symmetrical figure can be clustered into one. And the start utilization of the writing is directing attention and avoiding distraction. The director has to show the audience what to look at, and conceptual difficult. Most of the time of the process in the background of our minds, we see the world without having to think it. More times when this process involves our attention, for example, with evolution, it is possible for perceptualization supernatural effects. Next, please. Direct or subsequent chapter will be required to accomplish the task as early in order to reach our goal the audience. Once we provide the audience with enough clue, they will do the work of constructing the story in their own minds. They will use a gestalt to put our image together into main posts. They will use the gestalt of continue to see connect that and that might have no connection in the perception to construct stories meaning for themselves. The rules of magic. There are several rules of magic. You know, there's about never reveal to how a trick is done. Never reveal the secret to how a trick is done. And never repeat a trick. We use effective assistant. Movie stars are one more thing, tracing backwards. Sometimes one can cover another. Hierarchy of narrative question. Narrative question write the story. The question are arranged in hierarchy, meaning that some more important than others. Narrative question have to keep our interest, meaning is constructed from clue provided in the film that we put together in order to answer the narrative question. Next, please. Sequencing of narrative question, moving where the question are asked and answered can make a scene more emotional without changing the spirit of the script. The tactic is to delay the answer to a narrative question until after a boring part so the scene is kept alive by the tension of the narrative question. This often works well with passage scene where the character have to travel from one place to another. Critic Sherazade directs attention from the of ventriloquist hypnosis and magic coupled with an understanding of the principle will give a director of a powerful tool set, but never forget our goal to give the audience an emotionally satisfying experience. When you are able to touch somebody on an emotional level, that to me it's magic, it's not about tricks. Points to remember, first about a director must wear many hats in addition to magician, hypnotist, and ventriloquist. He or she must be a cheerleader, psychologist, mediators, circuit, and expert for the film and crew. And most important of all, we cannot forget entertaining storyteller. First and furthermore, a director directs the audience attention and keeps directing it. Change the pace so your audience doesn't grow up attitude. Give them a chance to catch their breath and give them some new scenery. Direct the audience in order to entertain them, but make sure you are clearly directing their attention. Learn the girls out with people and make them work for you. And the last analysis the hierarchy of narrative question, lies and answer in your film. Thank you.
Thank you for your explanation, Fabiana. The next slide will be explained by myself. And the next slide is chapter 7. Okay, this is the title, How to Direct the Eyes. Next slide, please. Visual clarity. To understand a film, a director must visually provide two things for the audience. First, the director must direct the viewer's eyes where to look. Second, once the viewers know where to look, they need to know what they are looking at. Next slide, please. General guidelines of composition. To keep the viewer's eye focused on the center of attention in an image, yet allow the eyes to move through the image without leaving the frame. This statement implies three things. First, the creation of a center of attention or focal point for an image. Second, give the eyes pathways. Third, make sure that there are not any unintentional arrows or pathway that lead the eyes of the picture frame. Next slide. Movie composition needs to be very simple. Use simple shapes to base the composition on. Subdivide the screen, placing the focus of attention on thirds work very well. Light and shadows. Place light over dark and dark over light, thus weaving together the elements. This is known as counterchain. These common values help unify compositions. Directing the eyes in space and time. Perspective in art, often called artificial or linear perspective, is a system for representing three-dimensional space on a flat surface. First, it's an optical system based on looking at a scene from a single viewpoint. Perspective creates the missing depth from our picture, but it also creates unity in the picture to a single viewpoint, thus directing our eyes. The invention of the camera allows perspective to be taken care of by the optics of the camera itself. So even though we don't need to worry about it, the qualities that the camera imparts on our image are of utmost importance. We need to understand not 4, 5, 6 how the optics work, but the effects that are created by viewing a scene through a lens. Next slide, please. What to use? Telephone or wide-angle lenses. Telephoto characteristics. Little distortion, used for beauty shoots, a flattened space. Wide-angle characteristics, at fisheye wideness, extreme distortion, unflattering to faces, expand space, deep depth of field, vertical and horizontal shift to create dynamic diagonals. Next slide, please. Camera mobility. With new computer graphics, the camera is no longer bound to the earth. You can create great excitement with a camera movement. Just remember the enemies of the good design. Too much camera movement can be confusing, and if your audience is confused, then boredom is not far away. Next slide, please. Alternative approaches. Perspective drawing is a projection system that maps out of the view in points in space. There are actually several types of projection system, including classical perspective, oblique projection, and orthogonal perspective. Next slide, please. Point of view, subjective camera. In a point of view shot, the audience assumes that what is shown in the frame is a character's point of view. This is often shown as a shot of character looking, followed by a shot of what he or she sees. This is known as a shot reaction shot sequence. Next slide, please. How to make image speak, the hidden power. Next slide, please. Denotation. Denotation is what a thing is in common language. It's the literal dictionary meaning of something. Connotation. Connotation are what are evoked in the mind of the viewer by what they see. They are the associated meanings to something. Next slide, please. Iconic signs. Icons speak by resembling what they are. Film is iconic. We recognize what we see when we watch a film. It's based on image. Drawings, pictographs, photographs, and computer screen image are also iconic. Symbolic signs. The last type of sign is the symbol. Those are signs that have an arbitrary relationship to what they signify. They don't resemble their referent or have a causal relationship. Next slide, please. How image asks questions. The director presents images that ask questions that are driven by character desires, wishes, and fears, and then delay the answer. 4 master tropes. Tropes are figurative uses of words. They help us understand the world by rendering the unfamiliar more familiar. Since film is composed of picture and picture are particular and concrete, metaphor allow us to express ideas that are abstract, such as the theme of a film. And the next, metaphor and metonymy and synecdoche. Next slide, please. Speaking indirectly in time. Once something is said or shown, the story is not over. It's also affected by what will be said or shown. It has a retroactive effect on the signified. The meaning of the signified can shift until the meaning is occur on and at the end and of the sentence or film. Everything speaks if you know the code. Codes are like language, in the sense that we don't realize that we have learned them. They appear natural. A code is a way to figure out what something means. Code determines the genre of a film and gives you an overview of what you will be saying. They provide a context to understand what happens. Action in one genre may be totally out of place in another. Next slide, please. Codes specific to film. In addition to our everyday codes and genre codes, there are codes specific to interpreting film. Semiotic squared. Semiotics, the work of clues, is a vast topic with many more areas of study. Positive value contrary, negotiation of the negotiation negative value. Various scenes or characters can take on each quadrant of the square to present a filmic argument that explore all sides of an issue. Next slide, please. Okay, that's all from me. The next slide will be explained by Nabila. So Nabila, time is yours.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. Next one is the chapter 10, how to convey and suggest meaning. The director captures the audience's attention to the presentation of clear images that help to construct the meaning of the story. Their minds are led to create expectation and rationalizations that hold the story together based on clues and facts that have been provided or suggested. Film could record action and then cut up the pieces and reassemble them together. This open up new worlds and become the single most important aspect of filmmaking, the juxtaposition of a series of shots. Classical continuity is a technique of making films appear seamless. This simply means that we don't see any gaps in the film presentation of space or a break in the temporal flow. The director has to guide the audience with a meaningful, logical, emotional sequence given the appearance of reality. Film presents a complete seamless world, but this world is actually an illusion made up of many diverse parts. Editing is the process of deciding where to put all of the pieces and hook them up. With film, we weave together all parts into a story that the viewers complete as they perceive, read, and construct meaning from what they see. The movie director must select precisely what the audience is allowed to see in each shot. Give the audience enough clues to construct the story, but you don't have to spell everything out. Narrative questions are the drive that keeps us watching a movie. Causality, or causes and their effects, is the glue that weaves his world together. One event causes the next, and so on. Multiply types of causality. There are several types of causality. The first is physical causality, where one action leads to another based on physical forces. Linguistic causality, in other words, when we speak, we can create causes. Emotions are a form of causality. Emotional causality doesn't only react to our emotions, we act when other people have emotion. Protection of a crime is said to be a matter of opportunity and motive. Motives are reasons based on causes for anyone to take action as an effect of those causes. Semiotic causality exists because we respond to signs. Supernatural causality, where things can happen for no explainable reason. Viewers must be oriented to where actions are taking place in space and time. They construct mental spaces based on the information given on the screen. Action must appear to be going in a constant direction in the consecutive shots. Film needs to be present the illusion of a continually flowing present. We need time to focus on important moments, giving time for the audience to feel. If the film moves along at too fast a pace, the audience will not be able to process information about the story and thus won't feel anything about it. They will not be able to process the narrative. If you gloss over key emotional moments that the characters are feeling, the audience will not be able to feel them either. We need to focus on those feelings as the audience reads the characters' faces. Meaning is anchored retroactively by a sequence of images in film. Retroactively means after the fact. After you have watched the film and guess what it means, then meaning gets activated again. So meaning is anchored retroactively. Next slide, please. Film is a time machine whereby we travel through the linear narrative. There are several types of time as it relates to film. There is a chronological time, or the time it takes to actually show film. There is the edited film's narration. This is the time of the story. This may cover hours of years. There is the viewer construct the imaginary time of the story. This usually roughly corresponds to the narrative story time. Finally, there is the emotional time of watching the film. This is how long a viewer feels the film after watching it. Time in film is not necessarily real or objectively measurable. Film can actually speed up or slow down the experience of time. The director's job is to present one thing at a time, just as if it were a sentence, so that the audience can follow along with the story. Too fast or too much information and they get confused. Too little significant information or too slow of a presentation and the audience gets bored. Pacing is how we keep the audience interested, allowing them a chance to rest occasionally so they don't experience attention fatigue. Director presents cycles of rising action and tension. The pacing is balancing between boredom and confusion to maintain interest in the narrative generated by the question. The 11 is dramatic irony. Dramatic irony. Narration is the control of the flow of the information as to who gets to know what, when, where, how, and why. This includes the characters and the audience. The pace at which the audience gets to know information speed up as they get more involved in the story can work in three ways. First, the audience gets questions answered. Second, the characters get information that answer their questions. Third, the audience gets to see what happens as characters gain information that they didn't have before. It is the director's job to orchestrate this flow of information, creating tension and fulfilling closure when withheld information is finally played out. Next slide, please. An event might first appear good, but over time it causes problems and appears bad, but with more time it appears to have been for good. But then again it turns out for the worst, and so on and so on. We raise the stakes by giving the characters something to lose. There are two forces at work for the audience. The first is curiosity or the desire to know. This is why narrative questions drive the story. The second force is fear. For the viewers to be held in suspense, they need to have enough information to anticipate what bad things might happen. For films to create anxiety, they must first connect with our desires. We have to want something and then fear we may not get it. Spectators can respond with anxiety to things they might not even be aware of. Places for dramatic irony. Before a character takes action, he or she often has to make impossible decisions or forced choices. Discoveries that the character makes that change the meaning about his or her situation can propel him or her into action. Next slide, please. Chapter 12, the big picture, story structure. Structure is the relationship among the parts of something. Structure can also be the support for something. We expect certain things to happen in a certain order. The climatic end of a movie should not be predictable. It needs to be suspenseful and exciting. Functions were basically action verbs. Each function can be mapped out to show how a story event can be structured with its beginning, middle, and end. Mapping them out can also reveal many types of variations you can utilize to make the story function more interesting. The map gives an overview to show things you may not have thought of. Next slide, please. Ending, beginning, and turning points. When you have this, you can begin. You should start at the end. This way, you know where you're going. Each type of scene is there to give certain types of information to the audience and to help define the overall story arc. Their placement in the story is dependent upon each individual story. Their title, the title gives the audience a great deal of information and create expectation as to what they are about to see. And then once upon a time, the prologue is a quick setting up of the exposition is a quick setting up of the background of a story so that the audience can follow it, can be thought of as a frame for the story. The third is before it all began, the backstory is all of the events that have taken place before the actual telling of the tale starts. And then let's get this party started. A turning point in the lives of the character is a good place to start your story. And then here is what you need to know is about exposition, set up the rules of the world. The story should push the limits of plausibility, but not break those limits of believability. Once you create the rules, you have to stick to them. And then what is at stake? In order for the audience to become emotionally engaged in the story, you have to show them what is at stake and it has to be big emotionally. And then what do you want? Knowing what characters want tells the audience where we are going. And then, of course, this means war. It means some even needs to get the story in motion. Some catalyst is needed to start the war. And then discovery of the Rosetta Stone. Characters often discover information that can illuminate everything and thus change the world. And then do I have to? It's about obligatory scenes are scenes that are created in the minds of the audience while they watch the film. And then we can go back now. This is a moment when the hero has to face the fact that the chance of success for the quest is totally hopeless. And then the calm before the storm, before the climax of the film, it is a good idea to give the audience a chance to rest. And then comic relief. Comedy has the power to relieve unbearable tension. And then crisis. The crisis is a moment of truth for the hero. And then cut to the chase. We definitely need scenes that explode into action. They provide a visceral release from the tension and suspense created in the story. And then showdown with the shadow. This is the moment we have all been waiting for. It is a climatic battle with winner takes all. And then the aftermath happy trails. After the climax is over, the story is over. But we should be allowed to hang out for a while with the winners to share their success. And then the epilogue. The epilogue is kind of like a PS that completes the emotional closure. Some films describe where its characters are today. That's all from me. Thank you. And I will give it back to the moderator.
Okay, thank you for the explanation, Nabila. For the next slide will be explained by Rahmatul. To Rahmatul, time is yours.
It's about aiming for the heart. Once the audience decides what something means, they automatically feel emotions. Next, please. Do we really identify with the hero? There are different types of identification. The first kind of identifying that goes on in the movie is perceptual. We see things and identify what they are, and then we identify what they mean. Then the audience journey. When we watch movies, we narrate them to ourselves. We seek to understand and make sense of things. Then we want to know if our guesses are correct. And then what makes us root for the hero and his at the feeling. Heroes are usually the ones who learn and change the most during a story. We identify with their struggles, including the courage to face fears, make sacrifices, and fight for what they believe in. Heroes must find out who they are and face up to the truths. Villains can take on many disguises, from the classic trailing mustache type to environmental threats, monsters, criminals, corporations, family members, or bacteria. The job description of villains is to create conflict by making life impossible for their heroes and those they love. Next. Fears, flaws, wants, and needs. One way to develop characters who are internally consistent is to decide what rules govern their behavior. Arrange those rules in a hierarchy whereby certain rules are in operation most of the time, but under stress, the characters can act differently. The next one is love stories, what keeps lovers apart. What makes love stories interesting is the obstacles that keep the lovers apart. In the beginning, it is better to have had at first sight. This gives the story somewhere to go. The obstacles are what can make each love story unique. Why are so many movies about love? Love transforms people. Love is the source of great pleasure in people's life, but it can also be the source of unbearable pain. So what can go wrong with love? It can easily become unbalanced and turn into an equal relationship in the form of dominance and submissions, dependency, or extracurricular affairs. The next one, what is so scary about horror? Horror films focus on and exploit the monsters intent to cause us harm. Monsters are often scary in the first act of a film when we know the last about them and we still don't know what they can really do. Horror films are a special case whereby all of the narrative questions don't need to be answered. The not knowing contributes to their horrific effects. The rubber band theory of comedy, aiming for the backside of the heart. The rational way to deal with something that doesn't work is to try a different solution until we find one that does. The comedic way of dealing with something that doesn't work fits the description of insanity, whereby if something doesn't work, you keep doing the same thing only harder. It is even more comedic if when something doesn't work, you take it personally and put more and more effort into doing exactly the same thing until it explodes in your face. Misunderstanding is at the core of tragedy and comedy. In miscommunication, there is a gap between what is expected and the actual result. So many crime shows. Movies can fulfill our powerful sense of justice, that goodness is rewarded and evil punished. Emotional truth. The goal of filmmaking is to have the maximum impact upon the audience emotionally while challenging them intellectually. Film is about emotional truth, not logic. Music and color, not meaning, but meaningful. Filmmakers need to have piano players add accompaniment. Music can play upon emotions without resorting to words, and music helps defend the threshold of attention. Happy Ever After. Fairy tales mirror the stages of a child's psychosexual development. Then fairy tales present a solution in symbolic form that a child can utilize to help him or her grow. Let's Speak compilation. Themes don't always show up on time. You need to search for them, nurture them, and let them evolve over time. Choose one theme and let it be your guide. The theme also determines whether you like a movie. If you like the theme, chances are you will like the movie. If you don't agree with the theme, it is possible you won't like the movie either. Emotional engagement of a story. When a story isn't working, the emotional engagement stops. Next. Why we watch movies revisited. The first one, to have emotional satisfying experiences. And then the second one, some of the reasons why we watch movies and what we experience along the journey. Narrative question, puzzle solving. Narrative closure, relief from tension and questions answered. Sharing emotions, vicarious experiences. And the next one, the story note and the formula for fantasy. For the first one, human beings like to imagine that we can reach a state that is conflict-free and become whole. Humans are inherently structured with impossibility and paradoxes. The second one, desire is what motivates us, but desire is meant to keep us in motion, desiring more. When we get what we think we want, it is momentary. It is then displaced by something else. We are off to the next goal. Desire drives us on a quest to seek answers. The desiring quest is itself is the goal. Next slide, please. Points to remember. First, find your theme and use it as your compass. Second, discover what fantasy you are trying to build for your audience. Third, we watch movies for many reasons, but mostly to have emotionally satisfying experiences. This is your target as a filmmaker. The fourth one, for a structure and keep it invisible by giving the audience reasons to love and root for heroes and reasons to have villains. Fifth, engage your audience with close-ups, put them in the heart of the action. Next chapter is analysis and evolution of the Cerazade project. Next slide, please. Story evolution, making it clearer and more dramatic. Originally, this book was conceived like any other film book. The story was called Dumb Love, an imaginative tale about two monsters from warring clans who, despite impossible obstacles, fall in love and heal their kingdom. Thematic analysis and dramatic structures. Shahrazad's theme is the transformative power of stories. The theme of Dumb Love is that true love is unstoppable. The story of Scheherazade in 1001 Arabian Nights really didn't have a cinematic dramatic structure. Story parallels and repetitions. Themes developed for making all of stories pieces fit together. Scheherazade used story parallels as an attempt to reach the Sultan outside of his conscious awareness. Hierarchy of narrative questions of the Scheherazade story. The main questions contain a series of sub-questions that must be answered before the main one and are answered. Next. Cuts for length or to make the story move quicker. First, the hermit originally had amnesia and couldn't remember anything, so he wrote everything down on scraps of paper. Second goal also was to get amnesia when he fell. Third, originally the puppet had a much bigger part. It was to be a companion sidekick to Go, and it didn't like sticks. Fourth, there was also to be wood sprites in the wood that attacked Go and sticks. And the last, Go's ex-girlfriends also were to have a bigger part to help show Go's character development. Changes made to make the story more dramatic or resonant. First, delaying the reveal of the Sultan makes him more mysterious. Second, creating a big reveal of the place and interrupting it with the surprise foreshadowing of the blind beggar. Third, Scheherazade going against the crowd as they are fleeing with their laughter shows her determination. Next, the Sultan is split in two, himself and the evil vizier. This creates a retroactive refrain for the story. Next one, putting the girl from the opening scenes into the ending scenes for closure. Lunazade's puppets were added after the story was developed, and the last ending Cupid to make them laugh more cartoon-like and humorous. Next slide, please. And the last chapter is conclusion. Now we must say goodbye. Thank you. They don't tell you. Filmmaking is a collaborative process and you need to learn to put your ego on the shelf. Things are not always what they seem. The behavior of schizophrenics appear crazy until Gregory Bateson, a British anthropologist, and his researchers discovered a family communication pattern that appeared to be of the type damned if you do and damned if you don't. It is a paradox, like disobey our rules, including this one. The result they found was that this behavior was an attempt at communication in the crazy situations. Okay, that's all from me. Back to the moderator.
Okay, thank you to Kaira. Okay guys, that's all from our presentation. Thank you for watching. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.